Welcome to Doc Secret, the show where we uncover the playbooks, strategies, and stories behind the most successful dental and medical practice owners and the companies that serve them. This show is all about building the best practice. Whether you're a dental or medical student dreaming of private practice, a seasoned doctor looking to grow or sell, or an investor exploring the healthcare space, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Kevin Carl, and in today's episode, we're diving into the world of behavioral therapy, starting and building a practice, and the process of creating a product offering, marketing it, and growing its impact, all in the postpartum support therapeutic marketplace. Let's get started. Welcome to Doc Secret. Joining me today is Rachael Jones. Rachael is the co-founder, co-owner, and therapist at Trailhead Therapy PLLC in Arlington Heights, Illinois. Rachael is also co-creator, together with her colleague Molly Bass, of a program called Nurturing Balance, a tool for equitable division of labor in the perinatal period. Rachael, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here and talk about some really wonderful things today and have a good conversation.
Rachael, let's start by setting some context for our audience. What led you to this profession? What led you to this field?
I think the primary piece there is that I'm someone who has benefited immensely from engagement in therapy in my own life, both individual therapy and family therapy when I was younger. And so through that process, I saw what could happen when people are given the time and the space and the tools to really get to know themselves and learn who they are and how they want to live and what feels healthy and good in their life. And so through that process, I really decided I want to pay it forward. I benefited so much. And I also think humans are fascinating. I'm a fan of puzzles and problem solving. And so those two pieces kind of came together to make this feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing, with part of my time here on earth.
Well, that's great. And I know it's personal for you, but as is so common in this field, you went on to pursue a master's degree. How did your master's degree influence your knowledge as well as the relationships that have shaped your career thus far?
My master's degree is, hands down one of my favorite times of my life. It shaped almost all areas of my adult life, and so primarily, through that process, I had the privilege of going to a wonderful program at Purdue, and being able to learn from people who had been in the marriage and family therapy field, kind of from the jump, and got the broadest knowledge base, had my own life experiences, really challenged, had my viewpoint on the world opened so widely, in ways that I didn't even know I was not understanding or seeing or hadn't experienced things. The clinical experience was phenomenal, with wonderful, very skilled supervisors. And then my favorite part of grad school is the relationships that I formed. My business partner, my co founder and co owner, Mackenzie Sullivan, is one of my cohort members from grad school. She's also my son's godmother. So she's very important in many aspects of my life. And that relationship started in grad school. And my relationship with Molly, who is the co-creator, of Nurturing Balance, also started in grad school. We were all in the same cohort. And so my professional life has been immeasurably positively impacted by my relationships with those women. And then all 8 of my other cohort members are some of my most favorite people on the planet, have influenced my life greatly, have been wonderful parts of my life. And so that time is, um, a really happy time in my heart, despite it being very stressful. Still a very happy time in my heart.
Sure. Well, it sounds like you've made lasting relationships that are now part of your business and part of your life. You mentioned your son. Speaking of, you opened your practice and had your son in the same season of life. What was that sort of dual journey like for you?
It was it was wild and also very, very clarifying. I decided to open my own practice, and then about a month later, found out that my son was on the way, which happy, happy news, wonderful surprise. but was very like, "Oh, I just let go of my PTO and my maternity leave and all of those things that are really important," right? And so it was an exercise in getting really clear really quickly on what mattered and how much bandwidth I did have and didn't have. And then also a really quick course in some like radical acceptance of this isn't going to look quite the way I thought it would, and that's going to have to be okay. And also, oh, a giant, giant thank you to my husband, Ben, who was like, we got this, we'll figure it out. Um, and also my mom, who was instrumental in supporting myself and our family through both of those things happening at the same time. Um, but it worked out awesome. Really like my life. It's pretty it's pretty great.
Well, it's great that you had that support. I know a lot of people wait until the quote unquote perfect time, and there never is one, right?
No.
But a lot of people are waiting for that quote unquote perfect time to start something new. What pushed you to act and push through that despite this challenge and great, wonderful news in your life? What pushed you to really go ahead and start the practice?
I think, I was feeling the weight of the kind of some of the expectations in the large that can exist in the larger group practice model. It's not everywhere. Some people have very different wonderful models. But I was feeling the pressure of the time commitment that was being asked in the group practice model that I was in. And I was very aware that for me, that was going to result in burnout. I had my own little journey in grad school in how quickly burnout can find you, and how much conscious effort and support it takes to kind of battle that burnout and stay in the field. And for me, I was starting to feel that the volume of clients was not going to be sustainable for me either as a person or in the kind of work that I wanted to do. And so that was really the catalyst of, if I want to stay in this field and I want to work in the way that feels like I am showing up the best way for my clients and myself, I'm going to have to shift into a different model. And I, really became very certain that that was going to be necessary for me to have a life that felt balanced.
And you now co-lead your practice, as you mentioned, with Mackenzie, and you have a network of collaborators. Let's go back a minute. How did you and Mackenzie meet? Obviously through grad school, but when was that real connection, right? That really formed, and how did you decide to go into practice together?
Absolutely. Mackenzie is wonderful. She's one of those people who, like, when you meet her, you're like, this person, I want to keep you. I want to keep you in my life. She is brilliantly smart, but in a very human way. And she is really one of the most skilled clinicians I've ever come across in my career. She's brilliant at very, very difficult, very, very complex work. And so we met in grad school, and Mackenzie was a light, and she was always, like, helping everybody through things, and she was always like like, "Okay, we can do this, like, let's get up and go," when some of us were dragging our feet. And she was wonderful. I also had a very needy, anxious, elderly dog in grad school, and Mackenzie and Molly, um, both were part of, that dog Riggs's care team because she was gonna get us kicked out of our apartment. And so she spent a lot of time at their house, and they took wonderful care of her. And just Mackenzie's one of those people that the more you get to know her, the more just kind of like, you're amazing. And you want to just kind of keep her in your life and get to keep experiencing what an awesome person she is. And so after grad school, Mackenzie and I grew up in the same kind of area-ish of the Chicago suburbs, and she graduated a semester before I did, and started at a practice in the area and was like, "Hey, I think this would be a really good fit for you. You should apply here when you graduate next semester." And so I applied, and so we actually worked in the same practice after grad school. And then we both started talking about like, "Hey, I think I'm gonna wanna go out on my own." Like, "Do you wanna go out on your own? Do you wanna do it together? This could be really fun." And so we kinda started talking over time about what that would look like and what we'd like to do. And we started spending, we were able to spend a lot of time together socially outside of work as well, and really keep building on our relationship post grad school. She's my son's godmom, like I said. He just adores her. Um, and so we just kind of kept building on that relationship over time, professionally and personally, and really built some cool stuff together. And she's an awesome business partner, an awesome friend. I'm super lucky to have her. Um, she's awesome and brilliant. Brilliant.
And I know you know that you are so fortunate to have found that person that you click with.
Yeah.
I know starting a business together can be wonderful and it can also be challenging. You talked for a minute there about, I'm going to use the term sustainability. It wasn't sustainable for you to continue to practice as you were, and you were looking for change, and that was driving you to start this practice together. Could you describe for us how you built your practice and share with us specifically, if you can, what's been your approach to building the practice sustainably so that you can continue to enjoy it?
I think there's been a couple of really, really important things about it. I think one is that Mackenzie and I have formed a great support for ourselves, as a team within the practice, and we work really hard to hold up, our pieces of the practice and show up for each other really well. We've also built a really, really cool, kind of collaboration and referral network with other professionals in the field, that we're super proud of. And so we have a network of other clinicians who we trust and who we know do great work and who trust our work, and think highly of us. And we have this wonderful sort of cross referral support consultation network that we've built over time. And so some of it's from grad school, like Molly and her business partner, Emily, their practice, we cross refer and consult with them constantly. We also have other people that we've met through practices that we've worked at before. So the practice that Mackenzie and I worked at prior to opening Trailhead, we've kept some wonderful contacts. Mackenzie participates in a great consultation group. We have contacts that come from there. I've gotten some really good contacts from being more active in like the perinatal space, and gained some really cool professional contacts with work and events that I've gone to in that space. And we do a lot of work to build slow but quality relationships with other clinicians that we trust. And so that referral network is kind of split up into two pieces. We have some people who we keep on hand so that if we're full in an area that we specialize in, we have really good spots to send people who call us and we can't take them. We also really work to pick up referral contacts in that network of people who specialize in things that we don't specialize in, so that when someone contacts us and we're like, oof, a little bit outside of our scope, we have really good places to send them. And then that works, in a reciprocal manner. And we built this really cool network, where we just kind of cross refer and look out for each other and consult on cases with the proper releases, of course, and those kinds of things. And so that referral network has been integral to the build of our practice. It's allowed it to be sustainable. It's been a really, really key part of it. Excuse me. Um, and that's been really, really important for us to have, so that we can put our energy into maintaining those relationships and building through them, rather than having to do the work of, like, you kind of like cold calling and those things, which truly takes, I think, a much greater amount of mental and emotional energy. And so this kind of slow burn kind of relational network we have has been really helpful, um, in building our practice and sustaining it. And I think, another piece that's really helped in our practice being sustainable is that we have built incrementally and thoughtfully. I think there's a ton of pressure to build fast, which I get because people need to make money. Um, but we've been able to really blend that, needing to support our lives and our families and those things, and then also be able to build our practice in a way that is overwhelmingly fulfilling with the minimal amount of that kind of really sort of bandwidth sapping pieces. And so we network in ways that don't take more from us than we have to give. We are mindful about our caseloads. We are mindful about remaining within our scope is a big part of having a sustainable practice as well.
Yeah, that's great. And speaking of bandwidth, in our prior conversation, you mentioned AI and you referred to it as a bandwidth saver. More of a bandwidth saver than, say, a replacement tool.
Yes.
Can you walk us through how you've actually implemented it in your practice and whether you have any early learnings from that? Could you share those?
For sure. And that's another thing that I can actually credit my nurturing balance collaborator Molly with is that she really introduced me to some of the ways to get AI into your practice as a bandwidth saver. And we've been able to build from there. So she gets some good credit there. But we use it to kind of uh save our brains for the therapeutic part and our collaborating and relationship building part. And so we use AI a lot for things like sort of making processes for things like emails, right? And so AI has written our intro email when we send all of our introductory pieces out to clients, right? It has written our um we're not full we're Sorry, we're full right now, but here's the practices that we can send you to, and here's what they specialize in. And so we've gotten a lot of those things kind of been able to build out really fast and really clearly and into a clear system and procedure through AI. We use AI to write and or edit a lot of copy for our website and things like that, to help revamp our Psychology Today profiles, to help write things like shorten up our bios, right? I am not known for being particularly like concise, especially in my writing. So I use A all the time to make my words way less than what comes out of my mouth or my fingers. It was notorious for that starting in grad school. And so we use AI so that our brain power goes to our clients, and goes to our business. And it has been really, really helpful in terms of preserving our bandwidth for the part where we're face to face and caring for our clients or growing our business.
Well, those sound like great use cases for AI in your practice. I know you've been vocal in this conversation about your efforts to prevent private practice burnout. What's one decision that you've made, whether it's early or recently, that's helped you stay in this field on your terms?
That's such a big question. I love that. I think there's a couple pieces. I think one decision that has really helped is honing in on I would call it maybe more of a decision-making process, but honing in on the areas of the field that I feel most passionate about, because that really helps to sustain engagement in the field, I think. And so getting really clear on the areas of therapy that I'm like, let's get into it. Like, let's do it. I'm stoked to like get in here with you and support you and learn what you need and help you work through it. Right. And perinatal mental health is a huge component of that for me. And there's some other areas of the field that I feel very passionate about as well. Perinatal is closest to my heart. But really taking the time and giving myself the permission to have areas of the field that I prefer to work in and areas of the field where it either touched on something for me that costs a little bit too much to be sustainable for me to work in every day, or were areas that just didn't kind of bring in that same like, "Yes!" And give myself permission to have spaces that I want to work in and that I prefer to maybe work less in. Um, and there will always be people who are happy to work in those spaces that we don't prefer as much, and so, it's helpful to find those niches. Um, I think, another part is really starting to work in areas that are alongside therapy, but not necessarily in the room one to one, or since we're family therapists, 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5. Um, and for me, that's been really helpful to have a combination of areas to engage in that still feel helpful and supportive of people who are navigating difficult things. And so that's
What would be an example of that?
yeah. So an example of that would definitely be nurturing balance and developing that program with Molly. Um, Mackenzie and I have also presented at conferences, as a practice and presented specific tools that we like to use in therapy. Um, I love doing things like this and talking about therapy and different pieces of it and the practice. Um, writing, I started utilizing um, a service that helps connect you with reporters looking for sources. And I love that because you get to have really cool conversations about things that are, adjacent to therapy, but not one to one in the room. And really having a lot of different things that I can engage with that are around therapy and supporting people in difficult times, but don't take the amount of super focused energy that being in the therapy room absolutely requires and that you have to be willing to give to be effective.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Well, let's shift gears then and let's talk about something you're passionate about. Let's talk about nurturing balance. Why don't you set some context for our audience? What problem does nurturing balance aim to solve? Let's start there.
Absolutely. Nurturing balance aims to be a brick of support for expecting and new parents. And so we want to be another piece that helps to prevent or lessen the impact of postpartum mood and anxiety disorders.
Well, let's go back then to the origin story of this tool. Why don't you describe the tool for us and tell us about how your collaboration with Molly Bass began? Let's start there as it relates to nurturing balance.
Absolutely. So Nurturing Balance is a framework and also a workbook that is used to help expecting and new parents foster an equitable division of mental load and household labor in the perinatal period. And people are used to hearing postpartum a lot. So perinatal refers to the time where we are trying to conceive and pregnant, giving birth, and then the year after we give birth. A lot of us are advocating for it to be longer than a year. But that's what perinatal is currently defined as within our field. And so we are working to help parents really have a productive um, and specific conversation around how do we get an equitable division of mental load and labor during that time. The reason that conversation is so important is because there is really good research that supports that even the perception of an equitable division of mental load and household labor is protective for moms in the perinatal period against onset or severity of perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. In human words, that means that if moms feel like their partner is sharing the mental load and sharing physical duties in an equitable way, they are less likely to have a postpartum or a perinatal mood or anxiety disorder, or it is less likely for that postpartum and perinatal mood and anxiety disorder to be severe. Um, and so Molly and I both are couples therapists, and we both are PMHCs, which means that we're certified by Postpartum Support International. Ooh, these words are twisty. We are both
Lots of
certified.
acronyms, right?
It's so many. um, and so we're certified to be perinatal mental health specialists. And we were seeing an incredible amount of crossover between couples work and perinatal mental health. And so we consulted around this regularly of like, okay, how are you having these conversations? What's working? What's not working? What are you seeing that's most impactful? And really, we had a lot of conversations in that space, and we still do. And so we talked about it and we had these things we were implementing, but they weren't a framework, right? It was just sort of like, here's what I did this month, here's what I did this month. Let's kind of exchange, right? And so we saw the call come out for the 2024 Postpartum Support International Conference. And we were like, what if we use this as our deadline, right? To kind of codify this framework that we're using with our couple clients or our moms who are coming in with couples issues, right? And apply to this conference. And we thought like maybe we get a poster, like maybe, right? Because that conference has some brilliant clinicians who present there. Um, and we applied, and then and then we got the email, and they were like, "Yeah, you're doing a workshop," and we were like, "Okay."
They upped the ante.
They really did. And we were so stoked, right? And also a little terrified. And so it gave us this push to really make this into a hard framework and a training and a workbook. And so we developed the framework fully to be teachable, and not just in conversations between the two of us. And we developed a workbook for parents to be able to take home and utilize and reutilize throughout the perinatal period, and presented it at the conference. And we're fortunate that we got a really awesome response, and people were really interested, and wanted to learn more. And so we've done trainings with private practices. We've done trainings with doula organizations, which was amazing. We have continue to do a ton of work in our private practice space, and both have clients seeking us out for that now. And then our newest kind of piece is I'm going to be teaching a class directly to parents through my local community college system, which we're super stoked about. And so we're kind of growing it out in these different ways where it can be clinical training and use, and also direct to parents in the community who might not want to go to therapy but would like some additional tools in their tool belt.
So let me just sort of encapsulate what we just heard. So, what I'm hearing is that this isn't just a workbook, it's a framework grounded in clinical research. You and Molly saw this crossover in your practice from couples therapy to these issues around the perinatal period, and that gave you a good inclination that there's a there, something worth digging into. You started this program, you've had a great response to it. I've got a daughter, by the way, who's in advanced education. She's working on a PhD. And I'm not sure our audience is aware of what it means for a poster session versus doing a workshop, but that's quite an honor, not just to present findings, but to really take the stage and get folks involved. I just want to take a moment and recognize what happened for you there.
Yes.
And I want to hear from you. What did that moment mean to you and Molly when you were asked to do the workshop, and what happened next? Could you just bring us into the story of that for a moment?
It was really, I'm an easy crier. I get emotional. It was really like the highlight of my professional career thus far. Like we got that email that said that we were going to do a workshop, and we were both like, are we real? Is this are we real? We know thing. It was really really cool, and it was a really awesome moment of all of the years of work that has gone in, um to just becoming a therapist, and then also to become, someone who specializes in a particular part of the field that we both care deeply about. And it was one of those things that was like, "Oh man, I did it." Like I did it. And we were super proud. And then we were immediately like, this has got to be locked in, perfect. Like if we're gonna do this, boy, are we gonna do it, right? And spent so much time working on making sure that this model represented exactly what we knew it needed to, what the evidence and the research, like you said, says it needs to, right? Um, Shout out again to both of our like amazing support systems. Like Molly's husband Matt was, he's got some brilliant ideas in terms of like editing and how to grab attention from his own work. My husband's an English teacher, so he was great in making sure my stuff made sense, right? Our families and friends, listening to this and reviewing this, Mackenzie, my business partner, Emily, Molly's business partner, were so supportive and so instrumental. So our people really showed up for us, which was amazing. And then to get to go to this conference, um, sorry, and sit in, I think, this room of professionals who care so deeply about moms and families, um, staying connected and being well, and like be able to bring something that people wanted to take home immediately, and had like a client in mind that was like, this will be helpful, right? And to see that this was actually going to have an impact was humbling, and very really fulfilling. Um, and the conference was also just like so much fun. Um, but it felt like we had done something meaningful, which is
Well, we're going to dig into the impact here in a moment about what that has meant. Let me just take a moment and sort of play back what I'm hearing. What I'm hearing for you is that you had a lot of emotion around this because it was frankly a capstone event for you in your career thus far, right?
yeah.
And it was a crystallizing action that brought something that you've been working on, put a deadline and a time to it to really summon your resources together, really get crisp around what you want this to be, to make that vision a tangible reality that you could share at the conference. And for our audience, who may be thinking about what those career moments are that matter, what I'm hearing from you is that this is one of those where you stepped out, put yourselves out there.
Yeah.
You got this great reaction, and the result was crystallizing something into a meaningful capability you could share with others. Does that sound right?
Dead on. Yes, absolutely. And I think the only thing I'd add there is that anybody who's like coming into the field or who is in the beginning of their practice or things like that, like you have something to say. You don't have to have been doing this for X amount of time or be at X point or have X amount of, revenue being generated. If you have something to say, if you see a need that you can address, say it. People actually wanna hear it, and it's important.
This is important, and that's a great message. Let's drive that home for our audience. Could you describe a moment or a story, perhaps, where you saw this tool already have a real impact, whether that's with a couple or a clinician or what have you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, um, to see I'm sort of my brain is like, "There's 5 of them." Um, but I think, yeah, I've sat in the room, right, with clients and watched them walk through using the tool and having the conversations and understanding what equity is, right? And how equity in the postpartum period is different. Um, and I've seen a couple really cool impacts. I can think very specifically of watching a couple realize um that they were going into parenthood in a really good spot and be able to look at goodness me, be able to look at each other and be like, "Oh, we're gonna be good. Like, we're gonna be okay." And that was amazing to watch humans be able to do that, right? And then I've also seen a version of that where we start walking through the tool and one partner has been able to look directly at the other partner and been like, "I don't think I this has ever been equitable, and I'm sorry, and I get it, and I'm on it." And then to watch the pregnant partner just go, "Huh, okay," right? And then
Yeah,
to
the
watch that.
feeling of being understood and supported, and then, the connection that comes through that interaction has to be amazing.
It is, and it's so cool to watch humans do their thing, right? Um, and then to watch that partner too over time who had realized that things had never been equitable, get after it. Like, they realized it and they boy, did they never look back. And I just, like, so proud of you.
What a great
Um,
story.
it's
You
real.
you talked about versions, and I
Yeah.
respect that you're talking a little bit differently than how I'm gonna talk about and use that term now, but you've gone
Yeah.
on and created multiple versions, or maybe adaptations is a better word,
Yes.
of nurturing balance, for different audiences. How do you decide to differentiate between parents, like you were just talking about, and therapists,
Mhm.
professionals, or what have you?
Absolutely. So we've got 3 different versions. We've got, like, we call it our human-facing version for our parents. And then we have our therapeutic version, which is built for behavioral therapists like us. Um, and then we have our healthcare worker facing version, which is built for doulas. We've got a really cool response from doulas, nurses, OBGYNs, um, lactation consultants, also awesome. And in those spaces. And so really what it's geared for is to support effective, appropriate use of the tool in different areas, right? And so when we are doing trainings or selling the workbook to therapists, the the underpinnings of it and the guides that go with it are very grounded in behavioral health therapy. So there is a lot of the relational knowledge that we have, the communication knowledge that we have, the way that we are trained to help people kind of walk through doors to figure out where they need to be. It's really grounded in that. For the tools that go out either to our like our human our parent facing tool or our healthcare facing tool, we really pull out that clinical behavioral health piece and we put in a lot of education around here are the spots where if you're seeing these things or feeling these things, we really encourage you to either seek therapeutic support or to send your patients to therapeutic support. And then we do some very basic kind of like communication modeling to help people have the conversation well. So those are tools like I statements, effective break taking, um, reflective listening, things like that, where we're not in that parent facing or healthcare worker facing model. We're not encouraging people to delve into any sort of mental health therapeutic component, uh, and really facilitating the conversation, and providing some framework to have it well, without the therapeutic component.
I'm curious, Rachel, what has been your most effective channel for reaching new users? You mentioned doula orgs, practices, practice networks, conferences. What's been your most effective channel so far?
I think um, I think the conference was a great relationship building tool for Molly and I that we got some really good contacts to the education from there. And then from there, Molly and I have utilized a lot of our personal and professional contacts to see where these needs might be, right? And so we've contacted practices that we have worked with or who we know work in the perinatal mental health space, doctors' offices, and these are both professional and personal contacts because it's okay to use some of those personal contacts to see, like, hey, is there a need in this space? And so we've done a mix of those things. Like this class I'm teaching at the community college near me. Um, I was talking to the instructor at the sewing class I took there about nurturing balance because I never stop talking about it. It's a bit of a problem. And she was like, "Hey, I think they'd really like this here." And she was able to put me in touch with the person who does community education. And so that's another piece of like, you don't have to have this crazy, professional contact network where you already know the heads of all the it's okay to go out there and be like, "Hey, I have this thing that I think could be really useful to you. Do you want to talk about it?" Um, and Molly and I have taken a very like professional and also person first approach to this, and it has worked well for us. And so we really have gone wide and cast a wide net and then have been kind of narrowing from there in terms of where we see the most need for this because while we are really really excellent and experienced and specialized expert perinatal therapists, marketing this is new to us. And so we're having fun learning and also trying really hard as a couple of perfectionists to be kind to ourselves in that learning.
Well, let's dig into that, right? For those who may be listening and thinking about launching a product and
Yeah.
thinking about how difficult and challenging that can be. And you've got a partner in doing that with Molly.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, it is a business partnership, if you will, around this product and bringing it to market. How do you and Molly handle collaboration and revenue sharing, that kind of thing? What's worked for you in keeping it, let's say, fair and flexible so far?
Absolutely. I think the fact, the greatest kind of the best underpinning in this is that Molly and I have a ton of professional respect for each other. And there's also a ton of personal affection for each other. But that professional effect is woo professional respect is what leads our work on nurturing balance. And so from the jump, we have had very clear, very consistent, very open conversations around what does this look like? And it's actually something that we learned in grad school that we do with our clients when they come in for any kind of relational work is that human brains structure equals safety. And so if you are highly, highly structured, our brains, ourselves, our nervous systems are more likely to feel comfortable taking the chance of making change or experimenting or trying something. And my therapist hands are coming out right now. And so Molly and I use that knowledge of let's have really structured, really clear, like overly clear conversations to create safety here for us to work and grow this tool. And so Molly and I have that professional respect for each other. We have a really great friendship with genuine affection and care for each other. And we've prioritized maintaining our personal and professional relationship. And then nurturing balance is something that grows within that. And so we've had, we're really good at checking in and being like, hey, this is what I'd like to do. Where are you at with this? What feels fair to you? And we feel comfortable enough and safe enough through that structure to say, "Yeah, that works," or, almost there. Let's shift this a little bit, let's tweak this."
Well,
Um
that's a great lesson for anyone in any line of business. Any pair of business partners out there listening should lean in and replay that. That's an important lesson. You mentioned this class at McHenry County College, right? And if I understand it correctly, you've talked about channels and working through doula orgs and other therapy practices and so forth.
Mhm.
McHenry County College represents a shift really to the direct to consumer space, if I can use that term, right? Just direct to consumer education market.
Yeah.
That can be challenging for scaling, right? Without other types of support, whether that's technology or others signing on to be that face of the consumer in this case. What's your vision there? Do you envision expanding that or do you envision that direct to consumer market going forward?
I think, there's a part of me that maybe, is a little I wouldn't say she's, a control freak, but who likes to really be specific about things that when I think about, that kind of going wider outside, I'm like, "Huh," makes me a little nervous, but our goal for nurturing balance is for this to be as accessible to people as possible. And so I think ideally we'd love to be able to see this into something where people can get trained on it or certified on it or things like that so it can go really wide because one of the things we wanted from this tool was that if you can't access therapy or therapy doesn't feel like a comfortable space for you, which is valid, um that this can still be helpful. It can be, like I said, a brick in the wall for new and growing families of one piece of protection. And if we can get in multiple bricks from multiple spaces, suddenly we're so much safer. And so I think our goal is for this to become widely accessible, whether it be something where it's being taught in person, it's a program you can purchase, you know, online and be able to do, asynchronous learning at home or pieces like that. One of the things that we feel most passionate about is that this is information that can be really helpful to people. And when we talk about it in spaces where people aren't aware of it, it's often surprising. And so we really want to get this scaled in the way that's most useful to people. And we're kind of like real time doing research on that as we try these different spaces. Um,
So you've got a go to market expansion in the one sense, but in another sense, you're also expanding the tool to serve non cohabitating parents and multi generational families. What are you learning about those unique needs, and how does nurturing balance help there?
I think, there's spaces that are wildly underserved, just generally in the perinatal period, um, in terms of how we educate people or talk about things or the adjustment. And I think one of the things that we were really passionate about when we developed Nurturing Balance was that this was a tool that needed to be useful to any any sort of constellation that people were coming into parenthood from, and that this is meant to be supportive of any parent at any time in any structure, any relationship. And so one of the things I think that we learned that's particularly important when you're working with people who maybe are outside of that sort of like, you know, movie version of coming into parenthood, right? Is that they're often already carrying a load of people thinking of them differently or chirping at them or pick your unpleasant human reaction, right? And so to really have it be clear that nurturing balance is a tool that is here to help you in whatever way you need help has been really important. And the tool is built to not come from our perspective of what is helpful, but to say, here is what research and evidence says can be helpful for you. Now, how do we help you access that within the structure that you're coming into parenting? And so it's really built to be client or parent first. And then anybody who's coming in from a professional or teaching capacity is there to provide information on what pieces might be most helpful or have we thought of these things, right? But not to impose their own view of what parenthood should or shouldn't be on someone.
Hmm. It's quite a journey of discovery, right? From the ideation that you had around this together with Molly to creating an event in the form of this conference to crystallize your thinking and really create the core product. You're now tailoring it and so forth. You've been on a real journey here. For our audience, what advice would you give to clinicians looking to productize something that they've developed in practice?
I would say I would highly recommend doing it in collaboration. Highly. Um, all human brains think just a little bit differently, right? And being able to collaborate with Molly and the way that both of our approaches have been able to inform this has been amazing. And it wouldn't be the product it is if it wasn't a collaborated upon product. So collaborate would be my first one. My second one would be to adjust your expectations of how many versions of this you're going to go through, um, and to treat it as first a learning experience and then as a kind of pushing out a productizing experience. Because I certainly have have we've needed to kind of flex and shift and turn our model a little bit and be adaptive. And so I would say collaborate. I would say treat it as a learning experience first, then a product. And then I would say to really be open to feedback. Um, when you push it out from consumers, from other experts in your field, be open to feedback from people who aren't experts in your field. Because when you're steeped in something, right? There's a base of knowledge that you come to believe is the general base of knowledge that's not. And it can be really helpful to have someone who doesn't spend every day in that area say like, "What?"
Well, let's zoom out for a moment, Rachel. What advice would you give to students? So, those who are in undergraduate or graduate school who are looking to enter this field, what advice do you have for them?
I would my first piece would be that moving into private practice or moving into a model that feels like it works well for you is not as hard as it seems when you're in grad school. Um, and that there are so there are so many models of how you can work in this field and work well in this field to really spend time thinking and learning from other professionals about what model fits your whole life. Um, and that it's not as hard to access as you may come out of grad school believing it is.
That's good advice, right? Paper walls is what someone once said to me, that you look at things as so intimidating and the reality is they're just paper walls that you need to push through.
Yeah, and I would say you don't have to push that hard.
Well, Rachel, we wrap up all of our shows with a lightning round. These are quick questions designed for quick answers. First thing comes to mind. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, let's do it. What is your favorite part of your work week?
Oh, man. I know it's supposed to be a quick answer. Shoot. I love coming into the office for the first time on Tuesday. It's like my mode switch. And I'm like, "Yes, we're doing it." So, that's my favorite.
What is one tool or technology you can't live without?
My phone. I'm so I tell my clients to be one way with their phone, and I am the other way. I could work on that relationship.
Great. What is one example of a mindset shift that's changed how you practice?
Moving from I need to fit into this one model that is presented to us, often coming out of grad school, into my work is part of my life and it fits in as such.
Great advice. What is one book that has made a significant impact on you personally or professionally?
There's a Tim O'Brien book, July, July. I love all of his books. But July, July, like, blew my mind. Um, it looked at a group of friends, like, during the Vietnam War and then when they came back for their, like, 20-year high school reunion, and it really clicked with that part of my brain that finds human relationships and development fascinating, and I read it as I was applying to grad school, and it was the best motivator. I was like, "I just wanna learn about people. That's all I want."
Wow, that's a great and unique recommendation. I hear quite a lot of books, and that's a unique one I'll have to put on my list. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
What is one myth about perinatal mental health that needs to go?
Oh, just one. Um, that if you're having a hard time, you're doing it wrong. You're not. It's just a hard time, and for some of us, it's harder than others, but having a hard time doesn't mean you are parenting wrong or pregnant wrong. Just means it's hard.
That's a great insight. I hope our audience is listening in for that one. One last question, Rachel. What is next for nurturing balance?
Oh, man. Um, Primarily McHenry County College, and then after that, I think it's us really honing in on the best avenue to reach our respective communities and making sure that we are accessible quickly.
Well, I'm sure there is a bright future ahead. Rachel Jones, it has been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Doc Secret.
Absolutely. I've had a blast, so thank you for having me.
Thank you. If you liked today's episode, please like and subscribe, and most importantly, share this podcast with others you think may benefit from the Doc Secrets shared here today. Thanks for joining us on today's episode, and we'll see you next time.